we're gonna play the music. I just want to make sure.
Well, I have a guest artist today.
Testing 1, 2, 3. We are live. And good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome. I want to thank you for joining us in this spirit of perfect harmony. We are the Center for Spiritual Living West Georgia. We study and practice the philosophy and science of the mind we know as God. And with our spiritual presence and participation in our service here this morning, we create a higher state of consciousness, rise above all that negative energy we may have experienced this past week, and manifest love for the coming week. Today we have a special guest that will be singing, Tam Andrews, and his visitor. But we still have our main music department available here. Cynthia Hogg and Connie Marshall. Just wanted to mention that, and I do want to welcome all the online congregation and the 101 other participants in spirit or physical. We're here. Without further ado, I would like to pass it on to the greatest and most outstanding master teacher, Reverend Sandra Jackson.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you. And welcome, Tam. Good to see you. This is your beautiful wife here? Yes. Hi, Jean. It's nice to meet you. Because Tam sang for us, but he was online. Remember? What? Well, where has my mind been? Glad to see you. Okay.
Maybe you weren't here that day.
So I've been here every day, I think. Yeah. But I might have been here in body.
In body only. Okay, I get that. I get that.
Oh, well, it's great to be here today. It's great to be alive. So let's just close our eyes, turn within, and just find that place within ourselves where we know that we are alive. We can take a deep breath, breathe in and breathe out, relaxing our body and our mind, and coming again to that place, that centered place within ourselves, where we feel and know unequivocally, I am spirit expressing itself in a physical form. I am more than I have ever thought I could be. I am more than I ever thought I would be, for I am all that spirit is in, through, and as me. And so I'm taking this moment right now to recognize it, realize it, and know it. And so we come together today to celebrate that inner knowingness of who we are, to recognize it in community, to have others see it in us, to know it about us. And so we come together in community today, knowing that this is the truth of each and every one of us who are present here today or listening later online. I'm knowing that we are all embraced by the spirit of love in this very moment, that it touches each one of us, it lifts each one of us up, and makes us into all that we know that we can be, because the spirit in us is the power, the energy, the authority, the love, the joy, and all that we need in order to be all that we are. And so it is.
And so it is.
Just stand, please. We need to do the vision and mission statement. CSL West Georgia is a joyful global community where everyone belongs. Through our unique spiritual teachings, We provide a safe environment to experience compassionate living. In our Declaration of Principles, I believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, and that we are surrounded by this creative mind, which receives the direct impress of our thoughts and then acts upon it. We believe in the healing of the sick and the changing of conditions through the power of this mind, because God is personal to all who feel this indwelling presence.
And remain standing, please. We're going to do a Ricky Byers song this morning. Use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here abide as you show me all that I must do. Ready? I used to think God was the Son, God is the Son. Not so much more than the earth and the stars and all of creation. God is creator, all in all, and God needs us to shine His light as me, as me, as you. So use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. Come hand my hands, what must I do? Come and my life is here for you. God is the love and creation. God is creator and makes all things new. And God needs us to shine His light as me, as me, as you, so use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. Show me all that I must do. Show me all that I must do.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How are you all? Helps if I mic up, doesn't it? Our reading this morning comes from Rumi, and it's called The Tree of Eternal Life. A learned man who had traveled the world over was heard telling a story about a tree in India whose fruit bestowed eternal life. The story was brought to the attention of the king, who, like most people, desired to live forever, and he instantly became obsessed with finding the tree. He ordered one of his most trusted ministers to travel to India in search of the special fruit and gave him ample funds to support his travel. Upon arrival in India, the minister began his thorough search from the southernmost point of the subcontinent to the remotest mountains in the north. He traveled from town to town, from village to village, asking every person he came across about the tree and its fruit. Most people laughed in his face, taking him for an imbecile, while others just ignored him as they would a madman. The minister spent many lonely days and nights in foreign places, only rarely coming across a friendly face. If anyone did speak to him earnestly, it was to convince him to give up his useless search, to tell him he was wasting his precious life. Some people would tease him and give him false directions to an imaginary tree in some difficult location, making him go off his trail and wasting more of his time. Mostly, though, people just laughed at him and took him for a fool. The devoted minister, however, did not give up, pressing on with his mission tirelessly. To ensure that he did not quit, the king regularly sent him sufficient funds to support him. Years passed, and the minister turned gray and old, and he finally had to admit that he had failed. With tearful eyes, he began his journey back home after years of abstinence and hardships. On his way back, he decided to pay a visit to a learned Sikh whom he had heard about, hoping to receive a blessing from him. However, the minute his eyes met I think I pronounced that incorrectly, the Shaikas, he burst into tears, sobbing uncontrollably for quite some time. Once he managed to take control of his senses, he confessed to the holy man. "Great Shaik, I've lost my way. I haven't achieved what I set out to achieve all those years ago, and now I'm returning to my master, shamefaced and empty-handed. I beg of you to take pity on me and show me the right path." "What are you searching for, my good man?" he asked with compassion. "Years ago, my king sent me in search of a tree that produces a fruit that gives eternal life. I've wasted my youth searching for it, but I never found it. All I found was sarcasm and pity," whispered the minister. "My wise man, this tree you speak of is the tree of knowledge, which grows within the human heart," imparted the sheik benignly. "You've been searching for what's readily apparent, and in the process, you've given up on the real meaning of life. This phenomenon is called different names. One calls it the sea, another calls it a cloud, while another calls it a tree, or even the sun, and many more names besides. Knowledge has thousands of uses, one of which is eternal life. God is one and without a rival, but he gives forth infinite signs. Think about this. The man may be your father, but he's also someone's son. What may seem like anger in the eyes of an enemy is kindness to a friend. You've been saddled with only one of his signs, namely the tree that you've been seeking. If you don't want to remain defeated, it's time for you to ignore what you see on the surface and begin to concentrate on the essence. What creates differences between men is precisely the superficiality. But once they understand what lies beneath the surface, duality vanishes." The minister felt an immense burden lifted from his shoulders. He no longer felt dejected or defeated. His heart had opened, and he knew that his passage back home would be one of joy rather than grief.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, you turned me off. Don't be turning me off. My good friend Tam Andrews is back with us again this morning, and his lovely wife, Jeannie. Thank you for joining us. Tam was a minister of music in Little Rock, for a number of years.
Yep.
And he and I met at Positive Music Festival along with Connie. And we're so happy to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. I think you guys are going to like this one. I didn't write it for CSL service, but somehow it fits really well. Well, nothing but free. A sweet holy presence is casting a spell over me. A radiant love, oh so pure, I am nothing but free. The universe promises nothing at all, yet there's love at its essence. Should you hear its call, hear its call, hear it call. Love is all. Love is all. Long ago, before our time, before any time at all, there was a seed, there was a plan, there was what was. And just because we can't define or truly understand this mind, doesn't mean we cannot sense it's there. A sweet holy presence is casting a spell over me. A radiant love, oh so pure, I am nothing but free. The universe promises nothing at all, yet there's love at its essence. Should you hear its call, hear its call, hear it call. Love is all. Love is all. Long ago, before our time, before any time at all, there was a seed, there was a plan, there was what was, there was what is. The sweet holy presence is casting a spell over me. I am nothing but free. I am nothing but free. Thank you so much.
I have to talk after that. Let's just breathe for just a moment. Thanks, Tim. Wow. Jeez. Well, I will tell you, those of you that are out there, the thing I miss most about being in here is that I don't get to see and know who's out there. We don't see you until after service. Sometimes we put you guys up there. But then some of you have already left by that time. So anyway, hi. Good to know you're there. You can see us, but we can't see you. So, but we are. Marsha's, yes. Big hugs. Oh, geez. That's a great story from Rumi. I want to ask you a very important question. Are you ready? Do you love your body? Do you love your body? Or have you just settled for it? You know, it's like, oh, well, this is the one I have. I can't do anything about it. It's the one I was born with. And, you know, my genes, my ancestors, they gave it to me, and here I am, and just can't do anything else. Or have you come to a place where, you know, this is a pretty nice body. I actually can love it. That's what we're talking about today. Because here's what I need you to know, that your body is not your body. It is God's expression coming into form. So think of it this way. We've all seen artists. We've gone to museums or we've seen art somewhere, right? Anyway, we've got art around here in the room, various places. Anyway, the art starts with an idea, an image, a vision in the artist's mind. Michelangelo, famously, you know, he saw David in the sculpture, this big old block of marble, and he just chiseled away, you know, what didn't belong and came up with a statue. All right. So an artist has an idea in their mind, and they bring it into a physical form. It could be a painting, it could be a drawing, you know, I mean, artists are also architects, you know. They do some art. I mean, some of these buildings around are just absolute marvelous, beautiful. I couldn't do that, okay? But they had an idea, they had a vision in their mind, and they brought it from the invisible in their mind, to the physical in form, right? Well, just consider that God did that with you. That you were an idea in the mind of God, and God said, you know, it would be so nice to make somebody in this particular body. And lo and behold, we have you. And God is so creative, He doesn't need to make two. Okay, even twins are different. You know, I mean, yeah, they may have the same eggs or whatever that is that they come from, and they may have split, and they look alike, but they are not totally alike, because each of them has God's expression in itself. And so I've been thinking, you know, for all the millions of years it has come to make your body. Think about that. I mean, you know, this group of Homo sapiens, which we belong to, that's the animal scientific name for us. They were Neanderthals first. And it took thousands of years of development. We are the evolved, you know, from all of that. Think about that. It took God all this time to make you. Look, you know, I mean, and you stop and think in the Bible, now that's the evolution story, right? But the Bible story is, you know, God wanted somebody to talk to. Right? And so He created Adam and Eve, put them in the garden, got mad at them because they wouldn't behave. Well, that's the Bible story. I don't think that's the truth. I think it was like, hear what they said in the story. It's your knowledge. And so, you know, we're here to become more knowledgeable about who we are, about life, and what life is all about. Do you see? And you might as well love the body you're in, because it's the one that God gave you and said, you know, I think Ronnie would be best in this body. What she needs to do in this life, she needs to do in the body that I'm giving her right now. And Sandra needs to be in the body that she's in. And so does Tam and Connie and all of us. Each one of us is in the body that God thinks that we belong. Think of it that way, instead of thinking, well, you know, my parents, they had an accident and here I am. I've heard people say that. Okay? Okay. You stop and think. It's like, no, you were not. They may have thought you were an accident, but you were really an idea in the mind of God that needed to come into full and complete expression. It's like God is Michelangelo and he's sculpting this beautiful body, and you're the one that showed up. Think about that. We have to become more conscious of the bodies that we're in, and we have to learn to love ourselves. But you know, I noticed, I didn't notice until Sandy was reading, but maybe it's because of what I was working on this morning. But you know, the thing is the man went out looking for something that was not his question. It was not his question. He was looking for the eternal life for somebody else, not for himself. And how many of us waste our whole life doing what somebody else has wanted us to do, either consciously or unconsciously? You know, our parents wanted us to be engineers or doctors. You know, they always want us to be more than what they were. Right? Okay. They didn't go like, you know, I was a laborer all my life and it would be a really good idea if you did that too. No. I mean, maybe 100 years ago, but not anymore. Now that we have schools and colleges and opportunities, okay, then now they want you to be more than what they were. I remember years ago, they used to say, you know, I lived in California. So it's like, you know, the children cannot afford the houses that their parents, you know, they have to go live with their parents now in order to save money. So basically they're saying that your children are not going to have as good a life as you have, as your parents. Well, that's not true, because they're making it up. All right. I mean, some of these young people have some houses that are unbelievable. Okay. I don't know where they're getting the money from, but they're getting it some way or another. Okay. But here's the other side of this. Most people don't love their body. You know how you can tell? All the commercials on TV, all the commercials for medicines, drugs, and all the medicines for cosmetics. Oh, and we won't want to forget the exercise stuff, right? All of that is aimed at what? Fixing your body. And yet, and don't forget the depression medicines. Those are about your mind, right? Don't deal with the issues and the stress in your life. Just take this pill and let it all go away, right? I mean, that we are constantly bombarded with issues that say you are not okay. They have to tell you you are not okay in order for you to buy what they want you to buy to keep them in business, right? Stop and think about that. So I was reading this morning from this doctor in with a lot of names and organizations and stuff. I will go into all of that he is, but he's an associate professor of senior he's a senior associate dean for healthy aging and senior care at University of California, San Diego. And he has a lot of other stuff too, but that's the primary one. And he said since 1999, in 1999, there were 8,000 overdoses that people died from opioids. In 1999, there were 8,000. Do you know what they were in 2020? 50,000 in 1 year. That was during the pandemic. But he said from 1997 to 2017, the suicide rate has gone up 30%. And he said that these are called deaths of despair. The Americans are dying of loneliness and isolation. And he's calling it an epidemic of loneliness. And he says it's caused by globalization and technology. Can you stop and think about that? You are the exceptions in this room if you're not thinking about suicide. Okay, or if you're not on depression medicine or something. Stop and think about that. But there's a reason why you are not in one of these groups of people, and we'll go into it in a minute. Thousands of people have not been on their trajectory for what they want to live with their life. They've taken orders from somebody else. And what happens when you take orders from somebody else? Think about the man, the story. I mean, that's such a great story. Thank you for reading it so well, Sandy. That, this man went and all he found was emptiness. And when he was at the end of his journey, he was lonely and he was empty, right? And he just finally goes like, well, I just have this one last thing I'm gonna do. It's one but who was it for? It was for him. It wasn't for him. It wasn't for the king or whoever he was working for. We get to the end of our life and realize, oh my God, my whole life went by and I missed this and this and this and this. Mostly relationships. And what are relationships? Loneliness is about relationships. Now, loneliness is not about the number of people you're around, because you can live alone and not be lonely. Okay? Loneliness is about depression and despair and about you not having an inner place within yourself that you can go to and be uplifted and take care and be self-caring. It's a place where you love your body and yourself as well. Okay? So he says, we are learning, for example, this is globalization. All right, so the thing about loneliness is that you feel disconnected from other people, okay? And so globalization, they told us, whoever they is, told us that, globalization is a good thing, it connects people, and it does. But it also has its downside, and we are all experiencing its downside right now, okay? We've got supply chain messed up. Okay, we've got, did you know that only 4 companies in this country sold baby formula? I mean, I was like, when I found that, are you kidding me? They have more soda companies. I swear we have more soda companies than we have baby formula companies. Think about that. I remember years ago, I saw this woman giving her 2-year, I'm assuming the child was 2 years old. It was small, so it could have been small for its age, but it looked like it was 2 years old to me. A Coke. Maybe she couldn't get baby formula. I don't know, but the thing is, they were out at a restaurant somewhere, it was like in the mall setting. But here's the thing, baby formula, we have 4 companies. And when one of them is messed up, all right, let me put it this way. One company basically is making the formula and supplying it to all these other places who are distributing it, right? So the distribution has broken down and it takes months to get it back, okay? That, I don't know, some class that I took at some point or another, it was on leadership, and they have this beer game. I don't know if you ever played it. But what they do is you divide up into teams and you have to distribute beer, and you go from the who made the beer to the distributors to the retailers and all the people in between, and you have to figure out how long, because the people in the stores have to keep a certain amount of product on the thing, and it goes up and down all the time. So your whole job as a leader is to figure out this whole chain of distribution. That was only a game until recently. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's what that's all about. That distribution is really, really important. Okay? Yeah, same thing. All right, it's like, well, we'll turn on the gas for a while, but we're making lots of money, so. Because what does business do? It just really if you do any leadership training, if you do any business training, you learn one thing: business is in the business of making money. Profits, that's all it's about. And the thing is that with churches and with nonprofits, we have difficulty sometimes raising money because people say, oh, you're nonprofit, so you don't need money. Oh, yes, you do need money. The thing is that you're not in the business to make money. You're in the business to serve people, and you use the money to serve the people. That's why you tithe to the churches. That's why you give to the organizations that you do. You see, so that they can serve the people. But businesses are in the business of making money. And so therefore, Facebook, let's take Facebook, okay? Because that's one of the things that is the technology. That's one of the things that is supporting loneliness in the country, okay? Facebook says we're connecting everybody in the world, and they have, all right? They've done a really good job of that. But what are they in an organization? Are they a nonprofit or are they a business? They're a business. And because they are a business, they use algorithms that increase their business. And guess what increases their business the most? Outrage. People being mad. People being angry with each other. And so, let me see if I can find it, because, they were very specific because they've been doing all these studies. I had no idea that they had so many studies on this stuff. They have a bunch of studies on these things. He says social media told us that it was about connecting people, but it also becomes a platform for increasing peer pressure tremendously, especially for young people, and they are hurt psychosocially. Their brains are not fully developed. They're still being, run by the amygdala. It takes years for us. But at the time I was divorced and I was a single parent. I couldn't afford to die. I had a child to take care of. So I had responsibilities. And yet at the same time, I know that I was lonely. I mean, looking back on it, I was so busy at the time, I didn't think about it. But you know what? Busyness sometimes covers up what? Loneliness. Okay, we just keep ourselves going so we don't stop and we don't ask ourselves. The scientists studied around 2,000 people in the general community, meaning all of us, ages 20 to 100. And the study has been replicated a number of times. So it's not just this one study. They say our physical health begins to decline at 45, between 45 and 50. That's why, when you turn 50, you went like, oh my God, I have such a hard time waking up in the morning. And how come I've got this ache over here and this pain over here? I never had that before. Okay, I was like, geez, I can't, my neck just gets so stiff. That's because your physical body, other than Chopra, you know, is, because we talked about this a little bit last week, but, you know, your physical body, they're saying, is aging and is starting to show the signs, especially if you've eaten a lot of sugar, okay, which we in America have done. All right, so let's bypass that. Anyway, he says, but, here's the big but, you will love this. Mental health actually tends to improve over the entire span of ages from 20 to 90. They call this the paradox of aging. Isn't that awesome? That means you need to keep coming to church taking classes. Why? Because what's happening? Because your mental abilities, you know, keep getting stronger. Okay, they're not getting weaker. Your body may be getting weaker, and you may have to do things, you know, don't necessarily listen to all that stuff on TV, because one of the things they said is that loneliness can also cause diabetes and a whole bunch of other stuff, depression and whatever. Okay, so you want to stay active, and you want to, you know, stay connected, stay off of social media and going down those rabbit holes, though. Okay, in our 20s, there's a considerable amount of stress. Stop and think about that. Some of us are stressed about, you know, did I get married in the time I was supposed to? What kind of job do I have? Can I buy a house? My parents, you know, I'm gonna have to take care of my parents. You know, some young people now are in that sandwich generation where they have to take care of themselves and their parents. You know, so there's a lot of stress. You know, I think about my granddaughter, and every once in a while she goes, oh, yeah. And she's crying and carrying on. It's like, and she's so anxious about this. And I'm looking back and going like, it's not a big deal. But she's like, ah, but the sky is falling. I'm gonna whatever. Nothing's gonna be the same. It's all falling apart. I mean, it's not quite like that. You know what I'm saying? But she's crying the whole time. And I'm like, Joy, just stop crying just a minute. I can't understand what you're saying. Okay. But it's all relative. She's not 30 yet. She's in her late 20s. And so she's going through that. And it's a really stressful time. And so, you know, what happens though, is the stress does not go away. You stop and think about the stress. I mean, I had stress this morning. Somebody just, I don't know what this, I'm sure this young man had, because he was in a Jeep. It had to be, and I could just see enough of him to see when I got off and going west and he went east, and I could just barely see a little bit that it was a young man in the car. And he cut me off. Like, I mean, he was no closer than Tam is. I mean, he was closer to me than Tam is right now. And we're driving down over 60 miles an hour down the freeway, and he just scoots in front of me just like that. And, you know, and it's like, what on earth is the matter with you? But you see, the thing is, he's probably still in his 20s. His brain hasn't fully developed, and he's not thinking about what I'm thinking. Okay? I took the AARP driving thing. Those lessons tell you leave 3 or more car lengths between you and somebody else. So I am very good about doing that. I can't say that I'm really good with their speeding, but but I leave the car lengths, okay? And these young people, they don't leave car lengths. I swear, this morning at least 5 cars I watched do this swerving stuff from one lane to the other, endangering themselves and everybody else. That's stressful, not only for them, because they don't realize it, but it's also stressful for those of us who are having to experience it on the other side. So you see, the stress doesn't go away. What do they say? We learn how to handle it. And that's when our mental piece is kicking in, and we're learning how to handle the stress that we're dealing with in our lives. So that's why I can look at Joy's stuff and go like, no big deal, Joy, because, you know, I've probably been through it. in some respects. I had to buy a house at times. I had relationship problems. She doesn't have too much. She's in a different generation, but the issues are generational, but they're the same, right? I mean, there's a similarity, to them. So he says, what happens when we're learning how to handle these things is wisdom comes in. Our wisdom starts kicking in. And this is what he says are the components of wisdom. Are you ready? So this is what I was supposed to send to Marcia, and I forgot to send her the attachment. So write it down if you can, or just keep it in mind. But here's the first one: empathy or compassion. Empathy or compassion is basically the same thing. In other words, take caring for other people, not just yourself, but I mean, we look at all this stuff, regardless of where you are with the guns and all that stuff. What about the compassion for the people who are dealing with the issues, period, regardless of what side they're on? Okay? We have a lot of stuff, going on in our country. There's a lot of turmoil right now. People are, feeling the inflation and what's happening. People are blaming this and that and another. And I heard this woman, they interviewed somebody who was very wise. Well, she said, we've had the pandemic. She said, we've had supply chain issues. And she said, now we have, and they were asking her about inflation. She said she said something else. Anyway, she said, I think it's just a perfect storm of all these things coming together. That was like, good for you, I mean, it's like there was no blame out there. It's just like, you know what, we're all just experiencing this together. And this is life. Guess what? There was something going on in the 90s. And there was something going on in the 2000s. And then we had the 9/11, and we had war for all these years. And then we get rid of the war, and here we are with a pandemic. I mean, it's just, life is going to bring us stuff individually and collectively. And we just have to, this is all stressful. We have to learn how to handle it. So he says, first thing you do is be empathetic and compassionate with yourself and with others. Second, emotional regulation. Learn how to take care of your emotions so you don't go flying off the handle. Well, I don't know what you did, but, I'm going to cut in front of you anyway. I mean, that's not necessary. Okay, so learning how to handle our emotional self. Self-reflection, which is something we teach in Science of Mind, right? Journalizing, what journalizing is about, it's about reflecting on yourself. Meditating is self-reflection. Okay, it's all about, turning within and coming to a place of peace within yourself. Acceptance, number 4, acceptance of uncertainty and diversity of perspectives. I was like, whoa, an acceptance of uncertainty. Okay, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. We just don't know. We don't know who's going to do something that's going to upset us, whether it be nationally, internationally, or personally. We just don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. We can't, and my grandmother used to say, it's not promised to us. We don't even know if we're going to wake up tomorrow. So, coming to a place where we're accepting of uncertainty and a diversity of perspectives, realizing that Jean and Tim are married, but guess what? They're not going to have the same perspective on everything, right? And the same thing with Ken and Gloria. I'm willing to bet they can tell you at times where they didn't always disagree, because there's a diversity of perspectives, all right? None of us look at life the exact same way. You're all looking at me and at this back here, and if I ask you to close your eyes and describe it, everybody's going to describe something different, because you're all at different angles, for one thing, so you have a different perspective on it. Do you see? That's life. None of us have the two perspectives, because none of us have the exact same parents. Because even if you have the same parents, you do not have the same parents if you're the oldest child. I can promise you that. Or if you're the second child, the middle child, or the baby of the family, your parents were different. I promise you, you did not get the same set of parents, okay? So all of our perspectives are different. Number 5, the ability to be decisive. How many times you go like, well, I don't know if I really want. Okay, I mean, if you can't decide on what you want, you can't get it. We teach that in Science of Mind all the time. You have to know what it is that you have a desire for. Okay, so being able to be decisive. And number 6, the ability to give appropriate advice and support to others. Now, I think that kind of ties in with the empathy thing. So you are present for other people and not just for yourself. People who are just, when we meet people who all they do is talk about themselves, what do? You don't want to be around them, right? Because they have no attention for you. And so therefore, it's like, I don't need to be about this person. I've heard people, they say they complain. They're not complaining. They're just talking about themselves. And you don't want to hear it anymore. See? And number 7, you're going to love this one. What do you think it is? Spirituality. Spirituality. These scientists, these social scientists are talking about spirituality. And they're not talking about God. They're talking about having a belief in something invisible that is greater than you are. And you can call it anything you want to, but it's spirituality. 7. That was 6. Oh, you're right. Spirituality was the 7th one. The 6th was the ability to give appropriate advice and support to others. Want to say it again? Be able to give appropriate advice. Appropriate is real important. It's real important. Okay, so now he says, how do you have these behavioral interventions? How do you start making changes? Okay. Guess what the first thing is? Keep a gratitude journal, which we did. What did we do? We spent February. Stop and think about how good you felt in February when you did that gratitude journal. We did the magic. We read Rhonda Byrne's book, and we did the magic, and we did the exercises in there for 28 days. They're all on gratitude. Stop and think if you've kept it up, or if you just, do it sporadically, or if you went back through the book. He says to keep a gratitude diary, recording something every day you are grateful for. It assists us in increasing self-reflection, empathy, and compassion, because you begin noticing the people around you and your desire to help where you can. So the gratitude journal is like helping all of those areas. It's helping your mental acuity, and helping you to stay present and keep out of being lonely. And it helps you to stay more alive and lively. And here's the thing, I think Chopra was trying to make this point in his book. If you have good mental stuff going on, your body is going to be in better shape too, because you're going to take better care of it. I mean, they just kind of all go together. Yeah. Physically, you're starting to decrease in physical stamina and whatever. I know I can't open the bottles, that I used to be able to open up. So I still have dexterity in my hands, but I don't always have the strength that I had when I was 25. But I don't need it. I have tools to open stuff now. Okay, so. But at the same time, it's more important that I stay mentally focused and clear, and that I live a life that I'm enjoying living. And guess what? It shows up in your body. It just does. Let me put it that way. So if I can find it, did I print it out? No, I did not, maybe. Anyway, I'll just explain it to you. What he was saying, he gave us an example of using all of those in one scenario. So suppose you have an argument with a friend, okay? You have that argument, They go away, you go away, you're both, okay. So then you go back and you sit down and you start thinking. You notice how you're feeling and how you're upset, that self-reflection. And then you started thinking about, well, this is how I'm feeling, but what about that person? What's their perspective? How might they be feeling, in this situation? What's their side of this thing? And you start thinking about that side. That's empathy and compassion. Do you see? And then he says, you realize that they may have a different perspective than you do. So there's your acceptance of uncertainty and diversity of perspectives. And you can make a decision of how you're going to go forward, given that you have a greater understanding, because now you not only have your side, but you have a beginning understanding of a possible understanding. You can go to them and you can ask them, well, how were you feeling about this? You have an openness to listening and hearing what they have to say in terms of their perspective. And all too often when we do that in arguments, I've done it at different times with different people. In fact, our youth group one time, we had two advisors that were upset with each other, let's say that. They were so upset with each other, they weren't talking. And so they asked me if I was still a youth director at the time. They asked me because they wanted to sit down and talk, and they asked me if I would sit down and talk with them so that they could talk the whole thing out. And we just sat there and they went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And guess what? They both loved the kids, loved what they were doing, had different ways of dealing with it. Different perspectives. That's all it was. They praise me to this day about a wonderful job I did. But really, all I did was just facilitate them being able to talk to one another. You see, and all too often, we don't give ourselves the opportunity. We hear our side and we don't give people the opportunity to say their side. We just make assumptions about them. Like I could make assumptions about that young man in the car. He's 20 years old and he's, think he's in a hot car and he's showing off. What am I doing? I'm making up a story because do I know him? No, I don't know him. I never saw him before. I'll probably never see him again. We're on the road all the time with people we will never ever see again. And yet we're busy making judgments about them. We don't have to do that. You see, that's not really good for our mental health. It supports our depression and despair because we generally see people in a worse condition than they really are, or see them attacking us when they're not really attacking us. You see? Okay, and then he said, then you realize there's a oneness, that there's a unity, that there's, that's the spiritual part. You see, that we're all in this together. He has different words for it. My word is that we're one. See? So here's the thing. What does this have to do with loving your body and loving yourself? Everything. Because the way you love yourself, the way you mentally think about yourself, the way you hold yourself mentally, the way you care about yourself and other people, I think it's so important that in his wisdom, what he's saying is wisdom includes your caring for other people. And the spirituality piece also, he says, has to do with caring for nature. So, because spirituality is inclusive, okay? So you're not just focusing on yourself as we were when we were 18, 19, 20, 21, even 25, when we just were, I'm all of it, we've all dealt with teenagers. I've dealt with teenagers for 10 years being youth group leader. They are all about themselves. But you know what? That's what they're supposed to be at that time. I used to tell parents, they get so mad. I said, no, they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be figuring out who they are for themselves, not who you want them to be. Do you see? You're not the king, and they're not the minister running around, through their life trying to be what you want them to be. They are their own person, and you have to recognize that the spirit of life is in them, and the Spirit is doing something with them. It has nothing at all to do with you, because they're in a different generation. And so God has something purpose for them that he doesn't have for you. So if you don't do anything else, and if you don't take anything else from this talk today, do one thing for me. Do a gratitude journal every day. And just notice all day long as much as you can, and be as grateful as you possibly can. Because the downside is about being lonely and living your life with unhappiness and loneliness and dying early. Okay, thank you. Let us turn within. There is no possibility of loneliness when we know who we are. Because it is from that oneness, that wholeness, that divinity, that is the source and the purpose of our lives, that opens the door for our connectedness with others, for our ability to grow and expand physically, mentally, and emotionally throughout our lives. It is that spirit of life within that allows us to love, to rejoice, to connect, to understand, to be decisive, to be compassionate and empathetic. It is that from within, because God is the source of all that is. And so we just simply in this moment give thanks for the body that we're in. We give thanks for our hands and our feet, our legs, our heart, all our inner organs, our head, our brain, and whatever we have disliked and been uncomfortable with, we are right here and right now embracing in deep gratitude and thanksgiving, because that is the body that God has said, I want you to have. It is the perfect body for you to be in, to live this life to the very fullest and most possibility that you can possibly be. And so we are just rejoicing now that regardless of what age we are, right here and right now, from this moment on, we are loving our body. We are loving our body. We are loving our body. And we are being grateful for it every single moment of every day, because it is the vehicle that Spirit has said, by means of bringing us to earth, I want you in this body, and I am grateful that you are here in it. And so let us just return that gratitude for the gift of life by rejoicing and loving the body we are in. And so knowing this, believing and accepting that this is a truth that is unfolding in us right here and right now, I release this word into the law, knowing that we're individually figuring out how to do exactly what needs to be done, because life in us is moving us forward into full expression from this moment on. And so it is.
Well, thank you, Sandra. I'll have to admit, I'll have to work on loving this body, but I'll work on it. It's a good reminder. All right, this is, excuse me, this is called Chance of a Lifetime. Well, this is real life, what we have here. planet Earth, this spinning ball, this atmosphere so dear. The flora and the fauna out of sight. The daylight sun don't burn us and we don't freeze in the night. This is really something. It's a paradise, it's frightening. Sunsets, moonbeams, northern lights, the thunder and the lightning. Well, did you ever stop to think why there's a you, why there's a me? Did you ever really take the time to marvel at a tree? There's a million other things for us to see. There's a million other thoughts for you and me. There's a million other ways for us to be. It's a chance of a lifetime. It's a chance of a lifetime. Well, humankind, if you don't mind, not altogether truly fine. We wage our wars, we stake our claims. We're different, yet we're all the same. It's like we're all waiting for someone to take the reins. Take charge, well, maybe there's a reason we're all here. And maybe there will come a day when we see it all so clear. But until that time, consider this. There's something that you shouldn't miss. We're all players in the game. Shrug it off would be a shame. It's a chance of a lifetime. What is it? It's a chance of a lifetime. Or we're just fine. We'll dim the lights or let it shine. In the end, it won't much matter. All that chatter scattered to the wind. It's a chance of a lifetime. What is it? It's a chance of a lifetime. It's a chance of a lifetime. Is it? It's a chance of a lifetime. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. It is a chance of a lifetime. Yes, yes, yes. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Great song. Okay, so our conscious giving affirmation is in your program, and Marsha has it up there too. Freely I give with a feeling of abundance, knowing that my gift blesses others and myself as well.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I am. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
Thank you. And our affirmation is, I am grateful for the divine givingness circulating abundantly through my life, our community, and our world. Okay, so on June 26th, we're going to have Celebration Sunday, and that is the day that we're going to acknowledge our new members and our graduates from our Science of Mind classes. And some of you might be surprised at some of the things that you're going to be receiving. So be sure and show up.
Whoa.
Okay. All right. And June 19th is next Sunday, and we have a board meeting. But beginning that board meeting, because last month the board decided we're going to be visioning on the first and third Sundays of the month. So the beginning of the board meeting will be visioning. So please, you too can stay, you online. Everybody is welcome to participate in the visioning. Takes about a half an hour, and we should be able to get through it in that amount of time and collect the information that we want to. And we're going to be visioning about our center, about what we want. We have this nice, beautiful space. The new landlord has cleaned out the back of all the trash and garbage and stuff, you know. And he told us he was going to fix it up some, because we thought that we could do some gardening, you know, like maybe have a little small community garden or something, along with, you know, opportunities to go out and sit after church, or, you know, and we're looking at, you know, some activities during the week. What would you like to do? You know, all those things kind of come out of the vision. Right now, we just have church on Sunday, and, you know, this place is empty the rest of the week. So we're paying, you know, for the whole week, and yet we only are using it on Sunday. And except for when Sandy and Bonnie come. Okay, or Marcia comes to work on the sound and stuff. Climb the ladder, yeah. Yeah, so it'd be really nice to, you know, use it, you know, a little bit more frequently, because we are busy serving people, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
May I make an announcement?
Yeah.
Sherry Henley will be here next week.
Oh,
We all
okay.
love Sherry, and
Yeah.
she'll be here to sing for us.
Okay. And I'll be sure and put that. I'm sorry, I didn't know Tam was going to be here. I wanted to put it in the newsletter.
Okay.
So, yeah. Just remember.
Okay.
Okay, so that's our service for today. Please do go out. It's a great Sunday in Georgia, and I hope it's a great Sunday wherever you are. And that all things are working together for your highest and greatest and most good. And so let us say our community affirmation, and then we're going to stand and sing the peace song. We go forth today knowing that we are God's blessing in the world. Only good goes from us, and only good comes to us, and so it is.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with spirit as our creator, united all are we. Let us walk with each other Yes. Peace.